Welcome back to How Real Estate Changed My Life. My name's Kyle McCall. You've probably heard the episodes prior to this. And really our goal for this podcast is just to let people know how accessible real estate investing is and the impact that it makes on people's lives. And for it to be a positive impact, you have to have certain people that support you. May it be a mentor, maybe a resource like a lender, or in this case, an attorney. So I've got Spencer Chaffin here. He is my go-to attorney for all things real estate related when it comes to transactions, entities. He did my estate planning. He's my go-to guy when I call for kind of anything that's unique also. Spencer, you want to kind of talk about real quick who you are and what you do, and then let's get into it.
Absolutely. Well, Kyle, I appreciate you having me on here and the very flattering introduction. So I always want to be that go-to guy. That means I've done good for that client. I've shown some value, things of that nature. But tell a little bit about myself. Is born and raised here in Grapevine and ended up moving back here after being gone since 2005 due to undergrad, law school, things of that nature. So it's nice to be back in my old stomping grounds. But with our law firm, we focus in the areas of estate planning and business planning. And so business planning being more broad, that's where we can help out in many different ways, such as real estate transaction, employee matters, like agreements, things of that nature. I will say one thing we don't do is we don't step foot in the courtroom. We are not litigators. It's not what we're here to do. We want to try and keep you out of court. We want to keep things structured. So that's where we get joy in helping add that value to our clients, is knowing that they've got something structured and the way that they want and need, and that it's going to help everybody out.
Well, having a good attorney set things up the right way kind of keeps you from needing to go into the courtroom. Because if you got it all set up, then there's a little bit of protection there.
That's exactly right. It's all about kind of setting. It's a marriage, even with a landlord and tenant or what have you. It's still a marriage, and you got to go into that marriage knowing the rules, so to speak. Of this is what we're agreeing to coming together, and if you don't have those expectations laid out, then that's where a lot of times you have a lot of conflict, and so we want to try and avoid that. We want to know what is expected of both sides and have everybody agree to it before you enter into that agreement. Yeah,
we're very fortunate in Texas where Board of Realtors has an amazing lease. It's very, very long. But the great thing about it is it has every scenario pretty much covered, like from broken windows to didn't pay my rent, whatever. So it's very well covered. And exactly what you're talking about, everything's kind of out there. So there's no confusion. We have to remind people, this is what you signed. We went over, we go in real detail with our tenants prior to moving in. Like, hey, this is what the lease is and initial next to everything, so that it can't be confused that they didn't read their lease. But so let's backtrack a little bit. Our families are friends. Like I married into a good family. You married into a good family that they were already family friends. So it kind of worked out great. And that's how I really got to meet you.
We benefited from
our marriage. We got promoted up. And I think the first time I used you, if I can remember right, I don't remember if it was creating a business entity that I was holding assets in, or I think it was on a entity that we were remodeling homes, DFW Landlord Services, or Property Maintenance Pros, one of those two, where we do work for other third parties. So we wanted to make sure that we have a good contract, and not only a contract for the work that we do, but also for our subcontractors that we hire. And you did a great job of covering all of the requirements of a sub and expectations of a project. So do you want to kind of talk about maybe there's so many things we can go down, so many different rabbit holes, but like a lot of the people that are listening to this are like, hey, I want to buy this house and flip it, or I want to buy this house, fix it up, and make it a rental. And a lot of the worst things that happen in that scenario are the contractor relationships. Do you think that might be something good to talk about?
Absolutely. So, really what it comes down to is who's getting paid and when, and what service is the other party getting, and then all the kind of, in between of getting it done. And so really it's very, very important. We'll say the sub wants to know, one, what is it that they're doing? And of course, they're going to do only what's listed in there usually. Don't expect more. Don't expect less. And that's okay. I'm not picking on the subs. That's just the way that it is, because I've heard it many a times, build it the way I wanted you to build it, not the way I told you to build it. Well, they don't want to get sued, so they're going to build it the way that you told them to do it in writing. So they're going to follow it to a T. So you got to be very, very clear about, hey, here's what I want you to do. I'm hiring you to do X, Y, Z, and here's how I need you to do X, Y, Z. But they also want to know how you're going to pay me. So you want to be very clear. And that was kind of one of the things that we worked on, very detailed for you, because I know it was very specific of, okay, we're going to do it in these tranches, and here's how we're going to define you've met this criteria to get this payment, and so forth and so on. And it really is, just being very clear. But what most people want is concise. Unfortunately, sometimes you can't be concise because, you want to start hitting every little detail, but you got to have it written out and what's expected, such as like protecting you, Kyle, is okay. If I'm bringing in a subcontractor, I'm going to make sure they have insurance. Let's make
absolutely
sure.
That was a big thing.
Yeah, because you don't want, if they do something, break something, what have you, something happens. Well, you want to make sure that they're going to be able to take care of it. And insurance is always the first way. Of course, that's always important for you as the property owner, is having your own insurance. So that way, if they don't, you can lean on yours a little bit. But it's always good to push that onto someone that is stepping onto your property, making sure that they're protected and protecting you as well. And it's just kind of like a renter. You make them have renter's insurance. You don't want to pay for their stuff if it gets, lost, destroyed, what happens. But yeah, it's very, very important to just make sure when you're contracting with a subcontractor, so to speak, you are covering everything that you want done. Because if you leave something out, obviously they're going to say, well, it wasn't in there. Now we're going to charge you this. And that's a lot of times you hear those where the big issues arise of, we didn't do what I wanted you to do. I don't see it in there. Well, it should have been, expected based off the project. Right. Well, that's not always the case. And so,
and that's why we have change orders. You did a great job at the end. I've got change orders. So if something pops up that we didn't expect, we can put a change order and address that.
That's exactly right. Because things like that do happen. Of once you start tearing out those walls, things of that nature, they may come across something new going, hey, we got a bigger issue here. Or, oh, you know what? We don't want to do the cabinets this style. We want to do it this way. Okay, well, that's going to cost something extra. And, okay, great. Let's all be flexible about it, but let's be reasonable too.
Yeah, it's all clear. So, all right. So we talked about contracts to some extent. So as a real estate investor, when should I go to an attorney in general?
Yeah. So my caveat is always, you're getting into it, you should have legal advice. Now, is there legal advice all over the internet? Yeah, there is. But if you actually read the bottom of every one of those letters, it's this is not legal advice, and you should seek legal counsel and things of that nature, because they don't want to get in trouble. And I get it.
And you never know who writes that stuff. It could be some chat bot.
And don't get me started on that. But and for the fact of that may not fit your exact scenario. And so a lot of that legal advice is very generic anyways. But the important thing from day one is protecting yourself as a property owner in the real estate industry. And so usually one of the more common things that you'll see is what's called an LLC, a limited liability company. Well, what is that? And what good does it do? Well, just like it says in the first part of it, limited liability. So it's a company where you typically will own your real estate in and manage or run your business through it. And the reason for that is, say the tenant slips and falls and sues. Well, who are they going to sue? They're going to sue the owner of that property. Well, if the owner is that company, and if the company was run properly and set up properly, it shields you personally from that tenant from getting outside of those assets of that company and coming after you personally. Getting the proper structure set up from the beginning and maybe having the proper lease agreement set up from the beginning. Though you did mention that TREC, the TREC form, the Texas Real Estate Commission, they do have a great form. So you could potentially use that and get away with it, not a problem. But having all of that implemented first is very, very important. Now, what I will piggyback off of that is not only do you need an attorney at the beginning, but a CPA, because you're going to start getting a stream of income. Well, how do you want that stream of income taxed? Well, depending on how you structure your company and how you're running things, that's going to affect your taxes, and you need some guidance from a CPA from a tax perspective. So all of those come into play at the beginning of how do I protect myself and how do I make the most money from a tax advantageous avenue. To answer your question is you should get an attorney at the beginning,
right?
In my professional opinion.
Now you've done some, I'm not going to say unique, but you've done some things for me. And like when I was traveling and I wasn't going to be accessible to close. So I was able to like give you authorization to do that, kind of like a power of attorney, literally, for a transaction. So that was helpful. So that might be something that would come up.
Yeah. So in structuring your business, you may be, it may be just you owning the business by yourself, or maybe it's a married couple owning it together, or two friends. So Kyle, say you and I join in together in an LLC and we're 50-50. Well, we got to understand who's going to run the business. Is it both of us? Is it one of us? Am I a silent partner? What have you? But if you go on vacation out of the country, can I act on behalf of the company? Well, more than likely, yes, depending on how it's structured. But you also do have that flexibility under certain state laws that you can authorize an individual to act on behalf of the company in a very limited manner. Obviously, you didn't want me making payroll, to people and stuff like that. Of course, I wouldn't, because I'm an attorney. I don't do numbers.
Yeah.
But yeah, there's some of that wonderful flexibility that you have through companies of being able to grant someone some authority to take that burden off your shoulders, so to speak.
So we've hit contracts. We've talked about when to hire an attorney. Something else that I put off way too long was estate planning and insurance. So I know that's one of your strong points in your firm is doing estate planning, especially for business owners, I think, and how important that is. So do you want to talk about kind of how that plays a role to maybe a real estate investor?
Absolutely. So the people have got to remember that owning a company, the asset of the company is actually your ownership in the company. And that's really, really important, because when a business owner dies, well, then you've got a triggering event of, either the company doesn't have an owner, they're in limbo, or you've got provisions in there that say who can step in automatically, take care of things. But the other big concern is what kind of downtime is there? Who has the authority, and when do they receive that authority to be able to act on behalf of the company? And so having a properly implemented estate plan can help limit that downtime for someone to be able to take over managing the property, running the business, things of that nature, or even being able to sell. One of the big things I see as an estate planning attorney is, a lot of times property is just owned in an individual's name. And then when they die, that property doesn't just automatically go to whoever is listed in their will. And what has to happen is the property has to, or the estate has to get someone appointed, usually what you've heard is called the executor or personal representative. They have to go to court, get appointed, jump through a few other hoops before they could even sell the property, if that's what they want to do, or be able to transfer it to the beneficiary. And so
it's not always a fast process.
It's not. And I've had, I'm actually helping some clients right now where parents, married couple, dad passed away, mom's incapacitated. And so they're kind of doing double duty. They're having to administer dad's estate on mom's behalf, as well as help take care of mom. And their mom's in an assisted living, and they're trying to sell the house. Well, you can't just go sell it. You got to get appointed to even have the authority to sell it. But then you got to get a little bit of other paperwork to sign that contract and then actually transfer the property to that buyer. But it can still be done inside that probate estate. But it's not like, Kyle, if you woke up this morning and go, you know what, I'm going to go sell one of my houses, and you had a buyer and you could just sell, the next day. And it's definitely not that quick. You just got to be very mindful of that, of being an owner yourself, of, hey, if I'm going to leave something to my spouse or my family, how am I going to do that? Am I going to make it more difficult by just, leaving it open-ended, not having a plan in place? Or do I want it to be a seamless transition from me to whoever it's supposed to go to? And so you've got to have the right plan in place, whether it be, estate plan or business plan in place. Because I've got a business partner with my law firm. If one of us dies, the other receives that deceased member's interest in the company, but their family is to receive money in return. Because if I died, my business partner doesn't want to work with my wife. She's not an attorney anyways, so she couldn't be an owner in the company, but she needs to receive compensation for my interest. And so it goes from a 2-member company to a single member. Okay, great. We've got those provisions in place and how that takes effect without going through court. So it's all about the proper planning and getting things just lined up to know, hey, should something happen while I own this asset, everything's taken care of.
Yeah. We've seen, as a property management firm, we've seen it all. And we've seen it done horribly and we've seen it done smoothly. And we've had a number of houses that were owned in individuals' names. And when a tenant finds out that the owner died, it's kind of like, to them, it's like they won the lottery. Like, they get to do whatever they want. They don't have to pay rent. It's like, I don't get, guys, lady's gone, and I don't have to pay you rent because you're not my landlord. Like, and that's what they have in their mind because everybody wants a free ticket.
Right.
When it's in an LLC, it's a little different. And then we inherit a lot of properties because people that literally inherit it don't know what to do, and they hand it to us, and we have to straighten it all out. But I've had a few that have been in like family trusts, or they've really structured it out well, and the ownership seamlessly transitioned very smoothly after a death. And tenants, no problem. Everything went real smooth. Everything is fine. No money hiccups for getting paid and everything. It was
and no court.
Yeah, no court. Yeah, we didn't have to think about anything. It was all done for us. It was like, oh, here's the new person. That's it. It was so nice.
Yeah. You might just be paying more people, more people because maybe they had 2 or 3 kids or what have you, but still the operation doesn't change because it's still the same entity, so to speak, owning it. Great.
Yeah.
It's always kind of like, I equate things of that nature to like Microsoft. And when Bill Gates dies, Microsoft doesn't die with him. He keeps running. Now, his family is going to get what's owed to them from his interest in it or what have you. But it's still the same thing for us regular Joes of, okay, if you look at your real estate as your Microsoft, what's going to happen to it when you die? Do you want it to keep running, or do you want it to be liquidated and sold? Well, you gotta have that plan in place.
And I think that's where having you work with Courtney and I on our estate planning, you asked hard questions that we hadn't, we think we know the answers to, but then we didn't really think that hard about them. So that was it was a really good exercise on like what if then statements on what do we want to happen? And I'd much rather what Courtney and I want to happen actually happen. And that's only going to be a result of having it all written out and to whoever's in charge afterwards.
That's exactly right. And here's the great part about having the plan set up properly today is that's good for today. So like my kids are 6, 4, and 1. What's good for them today may change 10 years down the road, 20 years down the road. And great, you can update that and say, one of my kids wants to be more involved with this aspect of one of the companies I'm a part of, and the other two don't care anything about it. Okay, great. We can start changing how things play out for the others. And that's okay, because not everybody wants to do what their parents are doing. But you were telling me before we jumped onto this, is like, you're very intentional with your children about, hey, here's what we're doing and here's why I do it. And this is the path we're going through our company or through the charity that y'all have set up. And it helps the kids understand more of, wow, that is something I want to do, or that's just not my cup of tea. And that's okay. That's not a problem. Like my dad owned a countertop business for 16, 17 years in the Dallas Fort Worth area. And I grew up around it, and actually I was only able to work for him for 1 year due to them changing laws when I was 13. You couldn't work around heavy machinery. So I ended up working for an aunt that had a supplemental insurance business. So I worked for her for 3 years inside during the summer in Texas. And I worked my last summer before, college for my dad. And I'm sitting there going, yeah,
supplemental insurance looks good. Well, that's a good business. If you got the clients, that is a great business. So funny thing is, I worked in a cabinet shop, and I was the countertop guy for 2 years in high school and 2 in college. All my Christmas breaks, all my summers, and that was it was a metal building, and I had the glue gun that I had to spray out. We heated laminate before we'd bend it.
Yep.
You're bending it, I don't remember, it was 200 degrees. Something was hot. Well, we couldn't have fans going because sawdust would get on the glue. So I never had air conditioning, anything. And it was 100-something degrees outside in a metal building. I don't know what it was. But I wouldn't trade that experience for anything. I mean, it taught me, I remember I'd take my lunch breaks or whatever, and the old men that I'm working with, they're like, stay in school. And they were right. And they didn't need to be the ones that inspired me, but they certainly did. But I got to see what it's like to really earn your dollar, and I appreciate that dollar more.
I do too, and that's why, like, my son who's 6, my dad's a home builder. My father-in-law is commercial construction. My brother used to work for a steel refinery, and he's now working for an electrical company. And then I've got another brother-in-law that's kind of an electrician, so to speak, and he's always been like, man, I kind of want to do that. And I'm like, please. The trades are awesome, man. You got a great opportunity to learn and then grow. And, with today's age, I mean, you're well aware of, like, there's been kind of a stigma of, like, looking down on the trades, but so there hasn't been a lot of growth in it. Man, what a great opportunity to own such a business. And you almost kind of write your own check, so to speak, because of the lack of people wanting to work in it. And so I actually encourage my kid, don't worry about being an attorney. You got a great opportunity if that's what you want to go do. Yeah,
there's a lot of opportunities for just in a big term trades, but just anybody I encourage anybody that goes into a profession that you can't outsource to India or China or Eastern Europe, something that can't be outsourced 100%, you want to be in it. And that's why we're in the trades too. We manage rental properties, but we made the decision to go above and beyond just managing rental properties, but actually hammers, nails, paint, everything, because we have more control of the process. But then that's where the future is, and we're well aware of that.
Well, and then to kind of bring it all together, it's like you're keeping the money in house.
Yeah,
you're not paying that subcontractor that's not a part of your group.
Yeah,
you're paying that third party. It's like, man, that money goes out the door.
Yeah,
and it's a bummer.
Well, my clients don't get as good of a deal. Like just last Friday, we had a sewer line problem in an old home. I mean, it was going to need a sewer line. I knew it was. I own this property, and I'm not going to call him a gentleman, but the guy went out there wanting to give me a bid to repair it. He's like, "Yeah, you're so good. I'm going to give you a discount. It's only so many dollars per linear foot, so between $19,500." I'm like, I know exactly what's involved in what you're about to do, and I understand what part of it has to be licensed and what part doesn't have to be licensed. So I'm getting it done for significantly less, like $4,000, because I can make the pieces come together, and I couldn't earlier. So now, like, yeah, I'll hire the licensed guy when I need him, and then not when I don't have to. Unfortunately, none of that's in house. It's all through subcontractors. But the more I grow, the more I want to bring in more and more of those things in house.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's, part of, so as, kind of talking about you and your structure is you don't have it all under one house though.
Mm-hmm.
That's, which is smart because you understand the importance of splitting your liability and your taxes. Is if you got all your money coming under one roof, the way that you can diversify your tax hit on it is a lot smaller.
Yeah.
But if you've got these other different departments under your umbrella, you limited your liability because if you're the one swinging the hammer, but you also own the property, and you break something or do something that then injures the tenant or what have you, all of it's now up for grabs. It's not, we can go sue this separate company because they did a shoddy job on repairing it, versus, it's really the same company, so we're going after everything they own. So it's smart to, as you've shown, you're a great example of going, okay, I've got this department for this reason. I've got this department for this reason.
And that comes down to having the right people on my team. So obviously, as an attorney, you're setting up those entities for me, but my accountant's the one that comes to me. He's like, hey, Kyle, you made a lot of money in this one silo. We need to break that off for tax reasons because it'll save you X amount of dollars in taxes next year. And then on top of that, we're going to make it S Corp. So we don't have to, if you don't want to pull money out, you don't get taxed on it. And so that's where having the right people on your team is so important. And so my accountant alerts me of things, you alert me of things, y'all execute what needs to be done that, I'm not smart enough or capable or qualified to do. And that's what I think a lot of problems I've seen or challenges with real estate investors is they think they can do it all. And they think that they're really smart, and they may be, but you can't be smart in everything. So I've seen a lot of people think that they can do everything. And when you're a jack of all trades, you're a master of none. You don't get as far down the road as you might get a couple of houses and you're the maintenance guy and you're the leasing agent and you're the guy buying it and you're the person negotiating, renewal terms with tenants. And man, if you try and do everything, you won't ever get anything done. And so that's where we lean on good people.
That's exactly right. And if you don't get it structured right at the beginning, if you pay a little bit extra at the beginning, it can save you money on the back end, because a lot of times I've seen issues where people just went and did it, put it all under one house, and then they need to break it up. Well, breaking it up may cause tax implications. Maybe moving an asset outside of one company and over into another one could lead to major tax implications compared to, okay, I paid a few extra bucks or maybe couple extra thousand to set up the structure properly to know, hey, in the future, if I do need to separate things, well, they're already separated. Or if I need to sell this, it's not going to impact this over here. You're starting out at the beginning. You want to try and keep costs down, understand, but you also got to be forward thinking of, okay, 10 years down the road, am I still going to have this property? Is this going to be my only property? So do I want to have more? How do I protect those? How do I diversify those in and of themselves? It's always good to at least ask the questions beforehand before you just jump in with both feet.
Right. Yeah. And like, I have no intentions of selling any of the businesses, but there might be a day where somebody decides to send me a crazy offer for my general contracting company. Well, it's already there. It has its own P&L. It's separate LLC. I can just sell it off. I don't have to break up McCaw Property Management at all to do that.
Yeah, because I've seen that before. It's like, well, I've got my real estate inside this, but I've got my operations practice under the same company, and they want to buy the operations. Well, they want to buy the company. I don't want them to have my real estate.
Yeah. So okay, I think I see a lot of business owners that will have a great business, and this is where guys like you come in, and they'll buy real estate that their business is in a different entity and then lease it to their business, and that way they sell their business and the real estate's a retirement plan.
And on top of that, you're deducting expenses.
So much.
You got another expense. You're paying
rent's
rent.
100% deductible, and then you got your depreciating asset, or as far as
Who are you paying rent to?
Yeah.
Yourself.
Yeah.
But it's really, it's a separate entity. So it's the smartest thing in the world to do that, of like own your real estate separate from your operations, because you get the best of both worlds. And you get to be your own landlord.
Yeah.
So you don't have to worry about, a bad tenant or a bad landlord, because if you don't like them, well, then that means you don't like yourself. Right. So you got issues.
Yeah. So let's talk about maybe, and we didn't talk about this in advance, but hey, have you ever seen any good examples of people that have used real estate that have ultimately changed the lives of their next generation, or them, or wealth building, or, retirement planning? You're an attorney. Have you seen any good examples?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, one, it's a way to pass real estate down to children. Maybe a child doesn't own their own home or something yet. Okay, great. You want to leave that to them so that way they don't have to go buy a home. Okay, wonderful. Or maybe it's a way of continuing on a stream of income for their family that will help benefit not only them, but maybe their children, which would be their grandkids and things of that nature. Absolutely, I've seen it where you've got these wonderful business entities that are just like any other business. If I wanted to say my son wanted to be an attorney, wanted to join the law firm and, buy me out, so to speak, or if I die, they go to him. It's no different than that, because real estate companies are just like any other company. And so if it's an asset that you could pass down that is already running, it's a plug and play for the family, especially if they've got the right team, such as, a proper management company for the properties, things of that nature. What better way than to receive mailbox money, is what I call it. Like, if mom and dad set up this company that's done properly, managed properly, and has a great stream of income, what better way than to pass it down to the kids, to where the kids can just kind of sit back and let it run like a well-oiled machine. Absolutely, I've seen that. It's a wonderful thing. It's kind of like the Walton family. They pass on their stock, Walmart and Sam's Clubs. Do they need to reinvent the wheel every time one of them dies? No, because Walmart and Sam's Clubs do their thing. They just get the stock, and it's just passing down. It's just churning money for them.
And I can certainly see helping the next generation either purchase their first home or hand down a home to them. And, some people may look at that as like, oh, you're just, silver spoon, or, spoiling your kids. And my kids are going to have to work their rear ends off. But I think the generation behind us is getting more and more challenging to purchase their first home. I think it's becoming less and less available to them for various reasons. Pricing going up, income not keeping up, financing terms, just a lot of variables in there. And I think that, if you can get your next generation into home ownership faster, that's a net win.
Well, Kyle, what about, you being the property owner and letting your kids buy it from you?
Yeah.
You get to set the terms.
Yeah.
So what a wonderful opportunity to do that as a parent. Is like, you're not giving it to them, you're still making them pay for it. You just they're maybe not having to go out and get a mortgage from a third party. You have the property, let them buy it.
I've seen a lot of high net worth individuals, and you've helped me structure some of these things, where private money loans, instead of going to the bank for the FHA or all these hoops and hurdles, like, why pay an entity that money when they could pay it to their parents, or their grandparents? It's a win for them, because it's better than a CD. It's better than whatever else. But then they're getting their family into investing or home ownership. It's all the best of both worlds, because maybe the older generation doesn't want the unknown of what it'll be worth later. They just want the income stream, and the next generation is like, well, I need the long-term benefit of owning real estate, but not necessarily the income stream. So I think there's a good pair, and I don't see that come up enough. I see it fairly regularly in my industry, but not as much as it should be.
Yeah, and and it is a way to just, now could it cause problems with family because it's money and family? Yeah, always.
Yeah, of course.
But
you can have problems anyway.
That's exactly
Who'd you
right.
vote for when you're sitting at the Thanksgiving table?
Yeah,
There's always going to be something.
that's exactly right. But like you said, it really is a win-win. As if you're keeping your money in the family and not giving it away to someone else. What better way to better your family?
There's a reason those financial institutions have big skyscrapers, and I mean
Yeah,
they're making some money being
they
off
are.
of us.
Yeah, like right now, I kind of joked with someone. There's a new place being renovated, or it's an older place being renovated, but they're redoing all of it here in downtown Grapevine. And I believe it's a mortgage company. And he's like, really? I go, well, man, they're printing money left and right with interest rates,
Mm-hmm.
so they can go do stuff like that. And that's I I'm not in control of that, so I'm not getting political, but when it's good, it's good. And so they're able to go do those things because who's paying for that?
Mm-hmm.
We are not, and so it's just the way that it is. So if you can actually keep that money inside your family and let them earn it and things of that nature, great. That benefits the family, not, ABC mortgage company.
You're right. I've read a lot of books, so I'm not sure if I'm quoting the right book, but I think it's Infinite Investing. I think was the term. I can't remember who it was written by, and there's several books, but it was written by an attorney who talked a lot about where these financial institutions and investment firms make their money, and the way they quote returns is not really honest, as far as like, hey, you got such and such return on your mutual funds. Well, not really. Because they don't take into account all the expenses and all that. But if you own the actual assets that the mutual fund owns, then you would actually get that crazy good return. And so I think what you're doing when you set that type of business model up, you're cutting out all those middlemen that really aren't needed. They're not necessary. So I think if you have the right team together, you have your accountant, you have your attorney that sets things up and keeps you from making poor decisions and letting you know all the ups and downs and left and rights, then I think it's a very good business model for a family to have when you get to the certain level where maybe I can help my kid get into their first one, or help my kid, make a move that they wouldn't otherwise be able to. Tell you what, we've gone about a half hour or so. So what advice do you have in general to people that are, on the fence on buying real estate and they're scared for a number of reasons? One, you're probably going to cover liability, but give us some basic, pointers or ideas or things to think about.
Yep. So if you're going to get into the real estate game, you're first time buyer, things of that nature, I would absolutely recommend, at least structuring it with a company to limit your liability. Talk with an attorney about the best way to structure that, and a CPA from a tax perspective structuring. But that's going to be your first thing to help ease your concerns, because it's not, I want to be very clear. It's not just, I created a company with the Secretary of State, I'm good. That's just the beginning of it. You've got to have the proper corporate documents to show it's legitimate. You need to have a company bank account, more than likely an EIN, a tax ID number for the company. And then you got to have a rental agreement that makes sure that it shows it's between that company and the tenant. Because if anywhere it really shows it's just you individually, you're probably not going to get that protection. So it's very, very important to shield yourself personally and get it set up correctly from the beginning in regards to that. As for the other aspect of it is, you may really want to consider, and I'm not saying this because I'm on your podcast, but I've already made it clear to my wife. I go, we're not selling the home we're in.
Yeah.
We are going to keep it. We will buy another home when we outgrow this one, but I'm not running it.
Yeah.
I'm going to have property management do it because I don't have the time. So that's all about having that proper team. And the other good part is how you've always presented this to us, including on our podcast that we had you on, is, people don't realize what they can actually rent their properties for. They're always afraid and lower it when in reality, you can do so much better. And so again, that's all about having the right team do things for you. And if I can just step away and let someone else take care of it, deal with the evictions if necessary. But usually, like you said, you're vetting those people. So
tenants are rarely as bad as the rap that they get. Like, we manage 1,000 houses. So we get some bad ones, and every week we're going to have a bad one, but we have 1,000 houses. So odds are you're not going to have a bad tenant, and I've been a big fan of the term, your property gets the tenants that it deserves. So most of our bad tenants, bad houses,
right?
And they're tenants that we didn't put into houses, but the nicer the home within, to a certain limit,
Right.
the better a tenant quality base you get, or the pool of tenants that you can choose from. And, just, make sure that they actually make the money they say they're going to make. There's a lot of fraud out there. So we do our best to catch it.
Yeah, exactly. But see, you're the one, your team is the one that's helping vet that.
Yeah.
I don't have time to sit through that.
Well, and you have a lot of resources, but you don't have the same resources I have. I pay a ton of money. That's where people think, oh, property management, like, why do y'all get paid so much? Like, no, we pay a lot of money every month for all the resources we have. And one of them that we pay, and not very many firms have this. You may have heard of Plaid. Like if somebody's going to go apply for a loan somewhere, like there's a third party company called Plaid that'll go in and go into the bank account. It'll go into ADP. It'll go into the payroll services to verify source of funds that's actually honest. So if a tenant comes to me and says, yeah, I make $1,500 a week from XYZ company, and here's my pay stubs, you can go out on the internet and create a XYZ company pay stub that match that. So our firm will go in and use a third party source, and they'll say, oh no, in this person's Wells Fargo bank account or Bank of America's bank account, yep, they got X amount of dollars from that firm every other week for so many weeks. And they'll even tell you if they're going to the pet store and tell them how much they're spending at the pet store. So you can kind of get some red flags there on that.
Yeah.
But there's just a lot of those neat little things that we can do just because we pay an arm and a leg for resources that protect us and our clients.
And see, that's all about having the right people that know to do those things.
Yeah. When you feel like you can do everything, that's when you miss out on those type of things. But
that's
so
exactly
Spencer,
right.
I want to thank you for taking. I know you're crazy popular and you've got a lot of demands on your time. So I appreciate you spending time, sharing your knowledge with us. If somebody's listening to this and says, "Hey, I need a guy," and need a guy like Spencer, how would they get a hold of you?
Yeah, so they can either go to our website, which is just bccounselors@law.com, or they can give us a call at 855-221-8251. And those are the two best ways you can kind of get either contact us or get more contact information or more information about our firm.
And it's important. You're not just Texas. You do Oklahoma also.
Yeah. So we're licensed in Oklahoma, Texas, and also New Mexico.
Okay. New Mexico. Good. So if I give me a cabin up there, then you'll take care of it.
Absolutely. I've got a client that actually helped do stuff like that for him up there.
Good.
So,
all right. Well, Spencer, thank you so much. Thank you everybody for listening to another episode. If there's a takeaway that I want you to get is use experts where experts are needed, an attorney, CPA, all that, but get good advice from the educated sources. So don't go to Facebook, don't go to Google, go to an actual attorney that actually is licensed and has rules that they have to follow. So Spencer, thank you again. And look forward to seeing you out in the world outside of podcast soon. And then look forward to the next episode.
Sounds
Thank
good.
you.
Thank you.